Welcome to Volume 1 of the Mortgage Sales Mastery Ultimate Mortgage Professional podcast series. And today we're going to talk about that important subject of prospecting. And more pointedly, we're going to talk about how to engage potential referrers to pass their clients on or to refer client business to you. In this day and age, it's often important to look at a number of different lead generation mechanisms, and one of those that is often encouraged is that of engaging referrers. However, we live in a world where most referrers would have some sort of connection with a loan originator, a mortgage broker, or a mortgage professional. And today we're going to talk about the finer attributes of how you can create a unique selling proposition about yourself, how you can get referrers to sit up and listen, and how you can develop a good relationship with a potential referrer such that you can depend on them to generate 1 to 2 to 3 new leads every single month. And today I'm joined by industry coach John Coffiotis. John spent a reasonably lengthy career in the finance industry, running his own business as a mortgage professional, and today coaches mortgage brokers in the finer attributes of engaging referrers and generating referrals from them. So good morning, John.
Good morning, Mark.
John, can I just ask you from the onset, you ran your own mortgage business for some time. What was the most difficult challenge that confronted you in that mortgage business?
The number one challenge in the business was getting more referrals, and in particular, third-party referrals from other professional services, because referrals in general for our business, as we understood, and I think for most businesses it's the same, it represents a great opportunity to convert those, because they're warm leads. They're fantastic, in terms of from a productivity perspective. It makes a lot of sense to chase those types of opportunities because we're able to cram in more in a day, so to speak.
Yeah, it certainly does. It's the lament of lots of mortgage professionals around the world where they say, the warm lead that they get from a financial advisor or perhaps a lawyer or an attorney or an accountant or a realtor or a real estate agent generally puts them in a position where there is some level of credibility before they actually start. So you mentioned that was your number one challenge. What in particular was challenging about engaging referrers?
I think it was the approach.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have an approach that worked. We tried a couple of different ways over the years.
What sort of things did you try?
Well, everything from paying for leads, offering to pay for leads, because that was apparently what the industry did.
Yes.
Just to test the waters, but that gave us no joy because we were attracting the wrong type of referrer.
Right.
For the most part.
Yes.
We tried various phone calls and emails, to kind of get those people coming on board or to get a meeting with them and establish relations. But we found that we might be able to get in front of them, but sometimes we were getting in front of the wrong type of people.
What do you mean the wrong type?
Well, for instance, it may not have been clear up front that we were looking for an exchange of referrals, or the type of client we were after, or they were just happy to give us referrals that were really difficult to convert or really rate based. But, I know we hadn't articulated in our head at the time what that looked like. We just wanted business, but realised that we were kind of digging ourselves a bit of a hole where asking for business that probably wasn't convertible in the first place, and then having them say, well, you can't do your job, can you?
Right, okay, and you feeling a bit demoralised as a result. And so your approach was to make a phone call or send a note to have an appointment?
Yeah, very simple, archaic approach where we just, would maybe call the local accountant or real estate or whatever it might be, whichever professional attempting to chase, and sit down for a coffee appointment. But we didn't really have a structure. We were trying to work towards establishing a relationship, but didn't have an approach that led us to a point where we both agreed that we were going to go down a particular path. So, and I guess we overthought it maybe, or we didn't have the experience, but it is very much like the dating world.
Yes.
We weren't trying to date them, we were trying to marry them up front sometimes.
Yes, in one appointment.
Yeah, in one appointment, which probably doesn't, maybe work sometimes.
Well, we know in real life it doesn't work
maybe
very
not.
well.
So that was probably part of it. Then we didn't have the right pickup lines, I suppose, so if we extend that storyline, because we weren't attracting the right people. So how do you do that? Even though we were good guys, so to speak, or good people, we were attracting maybe the wrong people.
Right.
So
in that typical instance, what sort of leads were you getting?
So typically, in the early days in particular, the leads we were getting were a broad range of leads, from self-employed, discharged bankrupts, or people in bankruptcy, liquidated people, all the way to people on workers' comp, and peppered and sprinkled with the occasional one that seemed to be okay, but not quite. But and then we had character issues such as, I want to do this and I want to do that. I want a cheap rate. Don't want to do with that particular bank. I don't want to work with. I don't want to provide you with all my information. All that sort of stuff. So it was everything that you would get business, but you'd get the wrong type of business. You spend more time spending trying to sort those out, and really scared of, I'm going to ruin this relationship, and working harder than you would normally work. On a deal that you would normally reject in the first place, because you're trying to save a relationship
and build that relationship. So did you focus on any particular referrer in the first instance? Were you solely focused on realtors or real estate agents, or
accountants were the first ones we tried, that were the very first ones, and then we moved on to real estate agents. I think we kind of did it concurrently, to be honest with you, but it was the same challenge. I think they had. It was naive of us to think that they didn't have a relationship in the first instance anyhow.
So even way back then, you were encountering scenarios where the accountant would already have a relationship with maybe a banker or a mortgage professional.
Absolutely, yeah. But it may. So we I remember walking into offices that had the big mortgage sign on it. So an accounting office that offered loans, and I'm thinking, why are we here for? So what did we say that was wrong to get it? Or hang on, is that on the tail end of that relationship? So we didn't have the tools or the ability to work through in our own head. Should we push through this? Should we walk away? But being inexperienced and not knowing how to handle it, we'd walk in and demoralised and thinking, Jesus, this is not going to go anywhere at all now. So, and almost sometimes probably killing the deal in the first place.
Yes, I understand. So, John, thinking way back then, it's 2005 and you're visiting an accountant. What essentially was your sales pitch to them?
So, embarrassingly, it went something along the lines of, hi, my name is John Coffey-Otis. I'm tied in with Mortgage Choice, as you know, a listed mortgage broking business on the stock exchange. I'm cringing as I say this. God. As you know, I don't know if you know this, but we've got 35 lenders on the panel, 450 products, and we can look after anybody at all, that you throw it. So I don't know if you come across that situation, but we're available. And
if I could just stop you there, that line that you said, we can help anybody. I bet you rued the day that you actually realised the impact that line had on your pitching, because if you really look at it, the type of client that you described that you were getting that you couldn't convert, who were they? They were just anyone, and you got exactly what you were asking for.
Absolutely. So the accountant would look at it and say, great, have this one. This one's not going to convert. See if you can do this one.
See if you can jump 6 foot 5.
How about this one? So you'd end up with stuff and you're boxing yourself in a corner where you just it's a bankrupt model, really. It's never going to work. And we tried this and burned bridges along the way. Not ruined people, but certainly couldn't help people. People would say, "Well, why am I seeing that?" Wasted everyone's time, really, and our own in particular.
And tell me, did you have moments through you going through that process where you asked yourself, had a long, hard look at yourself in the mirror and said, is this business for me?
Every day.
Every day.
Without a doubt. I mean, if I'm being absolutely brutally honest, it is a tough business. Even in the first instance, having to work through what you do as a mortgage broker, and it's become more complex as the years have gone on with compliance, etc., and the regulation aspect of it. But still, having to want to be pushing through those volumes, and then trying to leverage and knowing in the back of your mind you're trying to get more business through the front door, but still having to manage the day-to-day stuff. And then you go out and see these people, and what you get is absolute, just impossible deals. That probably need a Catholic priest and an exorcist to get over the line.
So were you very much questioning your own ability to do this? No doubt you would have also been challenged by the fact that you had an awareness that other people were going out there and supposedly connecting with these referrers. You surely would have questioned yourself and go, why isn't this working for me?
We worked out early on in the piece that money wasn't the right thing to do. And it wasn't really exchanging money for leads, because and I guess we probably couldn't articulate it right up front, but instinctively we knew that we cared about our clients. We put a lot of effort and emphasis on attracting the right type of client, nurturing them through understanding them, and building relationships with them, which ultimately led to referrals. But we didn't want to give those away for the exchange of money, and I didn't think that was appropriate for us to receive money for referring clients.
So you felt very much compromised by the pitch anyway.
I thought so anyhow, and there was also a question of, would I lose it to the next highest bidder?
Right.
How can we? And in my head it was about how we exchange value, and I knew of situations out there in the market where brokers did have relationships with accountants or other professional services that were really based on value exchange or supposed value exchange. But so you start questioning yourself, maybe I'm just not good looking, whatever it is that just not working for me. So
yeah, look, I understand that. So John, you're in a fledgling business, you've got a shop front, you've got rent to pay, you had an assistant working for you, you had to pay her, you had to service these people coming out of the coffee shop, and all your peers were saying go out and go and see referrers. Apart from that exchange that you spoke about that you confronted in trying to get referrers on board, what other challenges were you confronting? It sounds to me like you were working an awful lot of hours to try and achieve the results that you were trying to achieve.
Yeah, so apart from attracting the right type of client, in the first instance, because we did work out that we just can't be all things to all people at some point. And you started to draw lines as to what was in and what was out. In a simple way, but I think the everyday challenge of getting people, there's a scarcity mentality that comes with, I think, in retrospect, that comes with being a mortgage broker that undermines the service that you offer in the first instance. And I think it's the plight of the broker, which is why I got into this in the first place.
That scarcity concept is very prevalent in people's minds. People rarely take that 30,000 foot view of just how many people transact a mortgage every single day. And it's almost like they have this perspective that, this person I'm speaking to is just one of the chosen few who are going to buy a mortgage today. And that type of thinking does control the ultimate behaviour of the broker and how they apportion their time.
Absolutely. And I see it today with the brokers that I deal with today, and it brings me to tears almost hearing them say, I've really got to attack this. We might look at a particular scenario together. I'm dealing with this, and I'd be asking him, why are you spending any time with this person? This is going nowhere fast. But and you position yourself, and I don't know if it's the industry, I don't know if it's aggregators or franchisors, I can't tell you for sure, but I know for myself, knowing at the time we were looking at every deal to convert, trying to get them across the line. So that was a challenge, that scarcity mentality. I think then coupled with because you've got that scarcity mentality, you end up attracting through the front of the business the wrong type of business or the harder type. And people argue you've got to do all that, and fair enough, maybe you do, but you've got to draw a line somewhere, because some of those deals take up more than proportionate amount of time required to get along, to move along to a settlement situation where you get paid and look after a client. But it also means the opportunity cost being you've missed out on looking after people that probably value your service. It's funny, and it took me a while to work out that all the effort that went into the crappy ones meant that we were losing out on the ones that meant the opportunities that really, for people that valued our service, liked us, appreciated what we were trying to do, and in effect outsourcing all that effort associated with trying to find the right deals and seeing it to settlement.
So it sounds to me like your bullseye, if you like, or your target in your mind, your what it was that you were selling in the early days was, I can get you the best rate, and not even looking at what services you actually provided, how you address the other pain points of your potential client base, and you were solely focused on your big message, if you like, or your headline message was, I can get you the best rate and the best loan.
And yeah, absolutely, and probably worse still was, this deal sits on the far edge of what's possible. Okay, or they're already speaking to 3 or 4 lenders and 6 brokers maybe, and I'm the seventh person in line. What can I do that's different? So there's all that comes into play that you might weed out in the early, try to work with in the early days, but and eventually you wind up. But that's the your trading stock is time, as you know. So you get lost in all of that. Then then the ones that have come through, you've got to manage and see through.
Yep.
So interest rates, and then dealing with stuff that's on the far edge of possible, what's possible, whether it be because you're competing with others or just trying to squeeze square pegs into round holes.
Right.
In terms of policy, going, come on, get in there.
Yeah.
And you might get it in there and you might not.
Yes.
So all that sort of stuff.
So it sounds to me that like you were really putting in all these hours, and your initial thoughts of why it'd be advantageous to become self-employed was certainly not being met by the facts of what was popping out at the other end.
Absolutely, but there was always a nagging hook in the back of my mind saying, I can't believe that this is the only way. I just can't believe that this is the only way we can do business in this industry.
Right.
I hadn't worked out how,
Yes.
and I think to unravel that would have, to piece it all together while you're in the drama, the day-to-day drama of running the business, took me forever. But and I needed external help to get there, of course, because I couldn't think my way through
Yes.
it. But certainly, it's impossible to kind of think through the business while you're working so hard day in, day out and trying to remove it and try to improve it. So you're kind of stuck.
John, before we go into the segue of talking about your breakthrough moment, can I ask, and I don't mean to pry into your private life, but obviously you've described for us a whole lot of situations which would have drained your emotional resources tremendously. You come across as a very enthusiastic and passionate person, yet you weren't achieving the results that you were trying to achieve. What effect did that have on your own personal lifestyle?
Well, it was chewing up hours, and there's only so much, I think, equity you have in that when you're taking into personal time, whether it be your own personal energy, your health, or your relationships. And I was lucky enough many years ago to have been coached in the corporate world where I'd come from, that get it done in an 8 or 10 hour day. Either there's something wrong with you or the job, either way, fix it.
Right.
So, and I was all about fixing it. But certainly I knew that this was not sustainable. But I would hear about how brokers were working till 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. And like I said earlier, that nagging with the back of my, it can't be the only way. It's impossible that this is how this business is run, and particularly when you looked at some of the top performers. So it was about cracking that code.
Okay, so we're talking to John Coffiotis. John was a former mortgage broker with his own shopfront mortgage business, and today he coaches mortgage brokers on how to create relationships with real estate agents, solicitors, lawyers, attorneys, accountants, financial advisors, and the like. John, you've just given us a description of what it was like for you just starting off. You certainly had the enthusiasm to go and knock on doors, but you weren't getting the result. John, what was your breakthrough moment? Everybody who gets to some level of success has that defining breakthrough moment. Can you describe that for me?
Well, 2 things. The first thing was what we had coming through the front door was in the early days well outweighed referrals and repeat business.
Right.
But by 4 or 5 years down the track, it had actually inversed, more referrals and repeat business from existing clients. But that was where our main source of business was coming from. Walk-ins and whatever other leads we were getting were less and less. So the moment came and said, well, how do we get more of that? Because they convert well, of course. And how do we do, and I looked around and I spoke to different people and tried to work through the franchisor. And whilst everyone had some idea of how to go about doing it, none of them were effective in breaking through and creating that inflow of referrals that we wanted, in particular for third-party referrals, because we just didn't have any.
Right.
There were few and far between. We wanted more of those. So that moment came when I stumbled upon you at the Mortgage Choice Conference in the Northern Territory.
Yeah, so if I could just set the scene here. So my role prior to meeting John was that of a corporate speaker in the mortgage business. I'd done that for about 20 years or so and worked with over 1,000 different clients. And I was engaged by the company that John was a franchisee of, and asked to speak at their national conference, where I gave a talk about personal branding and how to stand out in an otherwise cluttered market, and how to do that with clients and how to do that with referrers. And I remember speaking for about an hour and a half or so, and heading out at around lunchtime and meeting you, John, in the courtyard with a few of your other colleagues. And I remember you coming to me saying, I'm trying to get this, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah, absolutely, and very frustrated, but looking for answers. And we had that conversation about, it really turned things around in terms of the way I thought about referrals and the approach, and obviously it became quite evident that the way we were approaching was very wrong. But and your thought process was you need to have an engagement process that brings to the surface effectively the people that are predisposed to using you.
Yes.
And you had this great analogy about walking into a bar and saying, are you open to date anybody in this bar? There's 100 people. Some people are slumped underneath the stool. Others are just vomiting in the corner. There's some really pretty people in the far end.
That's
Is
right.
everyone for you?
Yes.
So it was a fantastic way to, and I really liked the way you were able to draw those analogies and bring those stories into, because it really sunk in and thought, right, yeah, of course not. Absolutely.
Yes.
And it was the first time ever, and I think what struck a chord with me was, and I'm a fan of, it was the first time ever I felt a little bit more elevated from being at the bottom rung of the financial world, and thought, hang on, we've got a lot of value to offer here, but we've never allowed that to shine or allowed us to believe it.
Yes.
So I think that's the breakthrough moment there.
That chase of sophistication, if you like.
Yeah, and that there is value in what we know today. Mortgage brokers are licensed. They sit under the ASIC banner. There's regulation. There's a lot of merit in using a broker that's that knows his stuff and knows how to hold your hand from where to go.
Yes.
We often discount that, and back then, 2010, 11, you emphasised the same thing to me, and it dawned on me that was a breakthrough moment. Of course, thinking, of course, we're letting ourselves date the
wrong people.
The wrong people that probably we wouldn't in the normal circumstances.
And they're complaining while they're getting sick in your car on the way home.
That's right. So why are you drinking out of a paper bag? I don't understand. So do you know what I mean? So that was the issue. And I thought, right, of course, we're going to need to elevate ourselves and take us out of that. So that was that moment. But then the building blocks around it, of course, they came with the work we did later.
Yeah.
Were really important.
So to give you a bit of an insight, John then engaged me into a coaching program, and it's amazing how the wheels turn, because that's exactly what he does now in his day-to-day business, using his experiences and his learnings to help brokers to achieve some of the things we're about to talk about. So, John, I remember sitting in your office, and one of the first things that I said to you was, show me your pipeline, John, show me your pipeline. Can you let the listeners get a snapshot or an insight into that little dialogue between us?
Yeah, so you asked me to show you the pipeline, and I showed you a pipeline of people that, so there was some applications ready to submit. There's a whole heap of other stack of documentation where there were general inquiries that we had stacked up on the table. We had people through pre-approval process, but not having converted, maybe gone through the third or fourth approval process. You'd asked me that question: how long has this been going on for? And then, of course, we had people that are going through settlement. So there was a wide array of people going through the pipeline, and it was all in nice big piles on the desk.
And so I looked at this big pile, and what did I say, John? Do you remember that? Yeah. I said to you, what are you doing with all of these files? And
I think you said, that's shit.
And I think I can remember, and I have to tell everybody here, John's probably one of the best students I've ever coached, because as a coach and as a mentor, what you're always looking for is a student who's prepared to totally listen to what you've got to say and not question you. So, one of the frustrating things as a coach, and it's something that you have to deal with because people need to understand why you're suggesting to do the things that you're doing. But one of the frustrations sometimes is having to explain why a particular process works, when as a coach, you really buy into your student's success. You want to see your students successful, And as a coach, you sort of think to yourself, I don't want to waste my time with you talking about why this works. I want to waste my time with you getting it to work. But just going back to all those piles on your desk, I remember saying to you, John, what are you doing with all of these piles? And we went through a process of unceremoniously, if you like, tearing each of those, virtually 90% of those files and pieces of paper up and putting them in the bin. But one thing that remains with me is that look on your face where you'd go, John and Jan Smith, what do I do with them? And you'd give me the little story about it, and I'd go, bin it. And you'd go, bin it? And I'd go, yeah, bin it.
And the best thing about that was, Mark, that, and you know, I often come across it now, and I remember being a broker at the time, just no time to do anything, and setting the foundation. That was really setting the foundation of removing things out of your business that aren't going to result to anything, or just general inquiries or what have you. So it was cathartic in some ways to say, great, I've got permission to get rid of this, because to be honest with you, it's rubbish anyway.
Yes.
But I'm hanging on to it, and there's that scarcity mentality I was talking about earlier, where that creeps in. There's just not another deal out there. It's, for me, I've got to try to push all of these through, because my prospecting techniques weren't effective.
Yes.
So anything that comes through the front door, what do? I've got to hang on to that.
Yes.
And I see that today
Yes.
as well with the brokers that I work with. And I understand that, having gone through it. And so very cathartic.
Yes.
And created. I ended up going, well, what do we do now? Because they're all gone. There's 3 files on my desk. You've got rid of 33 of them. What happens now? So now what do we do?
That's right. Yeah, I recall that. But the whole concept behind that was developing a focus and focusing on the things that were that could make money for you in that given minute of time. And I remember talking to you about changing your focus from the number of loans that you are writing to maximising your hourly rate. Mm-hmm. Looking at it and going, I've got 8 hours, how can I increase the amount of hours that I work each or that I generate? Let me rephrase that. How can I generate the most amount of money for the hours that I work each day?
Absolutely. And if I can say, the 2 things that resonated in my head was as a framework, the simplicity, the beauty of it, the genius is the simplicity. Are you writing anything right now? And if you're not, what are you doing to get more business in?
Yes.
To convert another one tomorrow?
Those
that was
2
it.
questions.
That was it. That's your business right there. And I was there about conversions and all that sort of crap. And you said, John, if you get the right people in, you'll have great conversions.
Yes. Well, let's lead on to that point. So, John, and we'll talk about how you went about doing this, but can we just zoom forward? What difference did it make getting the right people, the right referrers and the right clients or the right prospects?
Look, and I think brokers out there will agree that when you've got that right client that wants to be led, that believes in your service you're offering, it sees you through the process, through thick and thin, and it actually is an easy process for all, but it's also a quick process.
Yes.
So the clients that are ready to go, that have got their heads on, they're organised, they're providing you the documentation you need. It fits. They're just happy that someone's there to hold their hand and see them through, because there's a lot of value for them. That's where they place their value. And someone that's buying into their dream, I think, that created a massive amount of space in our business.
Talk a little bit about that. What do you mean by buying into their dream?
So buying into their dream, I think, well, do I need to embarrass myself again? I think I do. So most of my questions initially when I was talking to brokers was all about, tell me how much you've got deposit. Deposits and what have you. We weren't really building by deep. We'd build the relationship after we got the math sorted.
Yes.
If you know what I mean.
Yes.
We never did it in the reverse, which is the right way to do it, which is what you taught us.
Yes.
And buying into someone's dream means you're there to people have come to you, taken the step forward and to trust you with their financials. They have come to you with a dream behind the financials. There's a thought process that's in there that's driven by the need to borrow money.
Yes.
That's an emotive one mostly.
Yes.
I need to get ahead in life. I need to invest. I need to upgrade my next home because this one's a bit small. The kids have grown up. But understanding what the driver behind that, I think, is all the difference. It makes all the difference in the world in understanding your client, which makes it a lot easier for them to deal with you. you end up attracting more of those clients because they end up referring anyhow.
So it sounds to me like you'd made a decision and you'd started to identify what the attributes were that were associated with dream or good clients. And by far, you would agree, the number one attribute that you're describing is the client that is, had a very clear picture on what it was that they wanted to achieve.
Certainly, and there were markers that you'd put in place in the process that we'd work through that said, these are the areas that you operate in, or you choose your areas, what's in and what's out. But certainly there were certain things that are non-negotiable. So if you're asking for a payslip and they're not sending it to you, well, if it's not important to them, how's it important to you?
That's right.
Why should it be important to you?
I remember having the conversation and saying, John, you cannot give a haircut to someone who doesn't want to bring their head with them.
That's right. So instead of following up, look, that in itself, again, I think leads back down to that scarcity mentality, that mentality of inferiority, where you're trying to make the impossible happen. Whereas, there's some people just cruising through life. That's not their fault. They're just, they're not in a rush, but you are. So you give it the due respect that it deserves, not for any other reason except that you need to move on to what's important.
So it sounds to me like you identified who your target client was. And I'm going to assume that once you had a very clear picture of what attributes needed to be sustained within an individual that you were engaged, you were then able to go back to your referrers and explain that you had a niche or a niche that you specialised in a particular area. Tell me, to what extent did it help you having a very clear picture of who it was that you were looking for?
Well, it became so important as part of what we did, only because, as I said earlier, we do anybody and everybody. So there's a bit of a, your sigh of relief where you can focus on the people that you think you can add a lot of value to, and people that will appreciate what you do. So that was really nice to know. So knowing that.
So just reverting back to your bar analogy, you started to make some decisions that said, anyone drinking out of a paper bag was disqualified.
Was out, effectively,
right.
yeah.
Right.
Sorry, and anybody under the stool. Right. So, we had enough self-respect, so to speak, to say, you know what, that's not in anymore, I'm sorry. Because we wanted to create the space for the people that mattered.
Yes.
So it became quite important to articulate in our own minds who was in and define those clients.
Yes.
Understand the attributes that make up those clients from a qualitative perspective. So they're organised and, they're keen to do something. Also from a quantitative perspective.
Yes.
In other words, what's driving, have they got the numbers, etc. So combining those things together were really important to be able to kind of create a message internally and then eventually externally to say, our clients are this,
right?
And this is who we're looking after, who we're after,
right.
Which gives you kind of your own DNA in some respects.
So it really gave you an opportunity to walk around going, I know that bullseye in the middle of that dartboard is coloured red, and outside the colour of red is black, and you're able to articulate that. So I'm going to assume that you took that principle and then applied it to the referrers that you were looking for.
Sure, and one of the things that we did together was being able to take that message and present that to referrers in a way that differentiated you from everybody else at the time. And I still, I think to a large extent, most people still do this. People do what I used to do, which is walk in and say, I'm a mortgage broker, I'm with such and such, and the best thing about me is I'll see you on a Sunday night.
Yes.
So that,
By the way, I bring my own paper bag.
That's right, for you and me. So I think going in there and having a target in your head, which would resonate with the referrer, and you're able to articulate in detail the plight of that person, who they are, what they're doing, what they're feeling, how they're going about their business, and why they're doing business with you, paints a picture in the referrer's mind of, hang on, this person deals with that sort of person.
Yes.
And all of us, you don't want everyone.
Yes.
You want those target people.
So John, working on that principle of saying, this is who I'm looking for and I'm going to disqualify the rest, did you overlay that principle to your approach to actually targeting referrers in the first place? In other words, did you develop your own perspective and clear picture of the type of referrer now that you were looking for as well?
So one of the things that we realised was, as part of identifying our client or our ideal client, so to speak, our niche client, was that we were able to add a lot of value through that process. We were valuable to them and they were valuable to us.
Yes.
So we figured it has to be valuable to the referrer as well.
Yes.
That was the thought process. And finally we were able to then present to a referrer, saying, this is who we are, this is what we're looking for, and these are the qualitative aspects of our business. Someone had to, the other side had to buy into that.
Yeah, I get that you then brought that idealism, if you like, and it was ideal. You brought that idealism or that capacity to describe who you were looking for into your appointment meetings. Where I'm going with this is that, you might have had, let's just say, a list of 100 real estate agents that you could call on. Yeah. Did you apply the same disqualifying technique to that list of 100 people?
Absolutely, yeah. So it extends now beyond the client base. It now extends to who you deal with outside of your business.
Right.
So if they didn't meet certain requirements, if they didn't value, for instance, their database, for instance, it was an exchange of dollars. I just stood on that principle. I didn't want to exchange dollars for clients or for referrals. I thought there was more value in than $500 in getting a referral. Then they were out, for instance, as an example.
I understand. So can you give me or give the listeners a bit of an example of the sort of attributes you went looking for within a referrer before you gave them your pitch? So I'm assuming that through any phone call you had prior, or the first 5 or 10 minutes, what is it that you were looking for that ticked all the boxes in your own mind, telling you, hey, invest more time in this person, person's who I'm looking for? What were you looking for?
So it's the first date. You meet somebody for the first time and you're trying to work out, find some common ground, whether it, and so it would, the conversation would be all around, this is who we're looking after. Tell me a little bit about your client base. Tell me a little bit about, what your clients look like and what do you do with those clients and how do you interact with them? And the conversation would lead its way towards, and do you ever deal with situations?
And what sort of things were you looking for back from them when you were asking those questions?
Well, we were looking for responses such as, so they were quite definite on who their client base was, how they added, how important it was for them to have that client base, how they interacted with that client base, so, and the types of questions they were asking them. We were trying to peel away the level of interaction they had with their clients and whether they were actually, for instance, asking whether they were going to do loans. They checked on them, for instance, financials for loans, or do they ever refer them out to a bank if they thought there was a better rate out there for them? Were they proactive that way, or were they not? So we're trying to work out whether they were doing that in the first place to give us a picture as to, can we take this to the next level?
So it's interesting. You're in effect looking for people that had a very clear picture on who their client was, where they were going with their business, and that seems to be a common thread through your breakthrough moment. You were looking for clients that had that very clear picture on what it was that they wanted to achieve, and you were looking for referrers that had a very clear picture on what they wanted to achieve for their clients. So I guess in a sense you were looking for proactive people.
Absolutely, that wanted to add value back to their database.
As opposed to people who were confused or unsure or had a lot of noise hanging around their decision-making process.
Absolutely. So, you needed a referrer needed to be organised. So there were a lot of people out there that had good intentions, but the timing was wrong. I guess no different to the dating world again. Do you know what I mean? So you meet someone, but they've just had a breakup.
Yes.
It's just not quite right. They may have come out of a really bad referral arrangement of some description, if you know what I mean. And they're just not quite ready to jump in with somebody, but they like the idea, they like the approach, but just not ready yet. So there's that. Sometimes it's just wrong. There's just no chemistry, right?
Yes.
So we just don't blend. You just know as soon as you walk in.
So it's sort of like really important to come to that acceptance that no longer is it important to you to make every post a winner.
No, and I think to coin your famous phrase, not everybody with a red sticker on their forehead that says I need a loan is a client. Not everybody that's a potential referrer is a referrer.
Yes.
Some of them pop in right away. Some of them need nurturing, sometimes a year later. But that's the nature of going out there and, I guess, prospecting for those referrers, because you need to be able to have the ability to pick the right one and work with them.
So I can hear the collective thoughts now of the people listening to this podcast thinking, yes, John, I agree with you, But John, what are some of the things that you do in the early phases to make sure that, the future time you're investing with this person is going to be beneficial? So can you walk us through your referrer engagement process and how that process talks to that concept of looking for a niche type referrer?
Sure. So in the meeting itself, we walk through...
So can we take you straight back? So you'd start with a list.
Oh, right, sure. So if we look at we start with a list, and the list we kind of get from Google normally.
And so what sort of things are you looking for when you're putting together that list? You're looking for names, I presume?
Yeah, so we're looking for names, emails, and mobile numbers or landline numbers that we can work with.
Right.
And create a list of maybe 20, 25 potential referrals.
So let's use the example of, let's just say, a financial advisor. So you'd go to Google, you'd type in financial advisor around a certain area.
Yes.
And up would come up a list of... would you go into then that list, and would you explore that financial advisory's website?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important to understand a little bit about their business and have a sneak peek and say they also have a mortgage broking arm. So maybe that's not one pursuing.
So what were you looking for when you're looking inside their website? What sort of things are you looking for to encourage you? Yes, at this stage, with the knowledge I have, it's worthwhile sending an approach email to them.
So first of all, a website,
yes.
Of some description, which told us they existed, and
yes.
and there was some, and it was an organised website. The other thing was looking at testimonials.
Yes,
that was an important aspect. Yeah, client testimonials, and also because of who we were, the nature of, we were looking for a match, so to speak, to a personality match to some extent.
Yes.
Not an exact match, but we really liked the idea when I remember seeing a financial planner listing out they had 3 staff, but some great insights into who they were.
Yes.
And I thought that's really good because that's the sort of thing that we do with our clients as well, and how we describe ourselves.
Yes.
So that's a really good one. I'm excited about that one.
I remember you and I sitting through that first list preparation process where we talked about going into the website and having a look. And this is a really good tip for anybody who's listening to this podcast, who's planning on creating a list and starting from scratch and revisiting the whole referrer generation exercise or referrer engagement exercise. One of the things I talked to you about was if you went into a particular, let's just say, financial advisor, and the same thing happens, with realtors and lawyers and attorneys and what have you, but you go into their website and you go and look for the principal in the website and you read their biography. I remember talking to you about take particular note about how that's written, because as we well know, and this will be a light bulb moment for everybody, your biography that exists in your website, who wrote it? You did, of course. And so the way it's written gives you somewhat of an insight into your referrer. And I remember saying to you, John, you're looking for people who write a biography that focuses on their clients rather than their credentials, where, they would recount, I help clients who are in this situation achieve this result. And I can suggest to everyone listening to this podcast that if you're developing a list, and the time you spend on reconnaissance is never wasted. So they're the sorts of things you're looking for. So once you compiled your list of 10 or 20 people, what was your next step?
Well, the next step was to either call or email them.
Yes.
I would do both.
Yes.
Just because I'm mental. Because I really wanted to get really good at making those calls. But the emails were just as effective, to be honest with you. There was no difference between the two.
Yes.
And wait for a response. As you said, we'd done some of that reconnaissance work, so we thought there'd be a match.
So you're saying something like, hi, this is me. I run this brokerage from time to time. I engage with clients who are looking for you, and I'm hoping that we could possibly set up some sort of mutual relationship. But in the first instance, can we just have a cup of coffee?
Absolutely. So it was all about, and in that, the critical piece was in that there was a small paragraph that defined the type of clients, our business
so
and our clients.
You're mirroring that even into your emails, saying,
absolutely.
I specialise in looking after these sorts of people.
Without a doubt, because we wanted to hit them between the eyes right away, because this is who we are.
Yes.
There's no point in hiding it or putting a moustache on and a disguise
Yes.
saying
Yes.
we're something else when we're not.
Yes.
We just wanted to say, this is who we are. This is the type of people that we attract in our business.
Yes.
These are some of the things or concerns that come up where we think you might be able to add some value,
Yes.
or someone like you might be able to add some value. What we'd like to do is to set up a coffee appointment to discuss how we might be able to do that. And I think, if you can help us with that, and I think that help piece, the ability to describe the client, having the client first in mind, I think automatically disqualifies a group of people that aren't, even though their websites may have been professionally written in a particular way, anybody reading it on the other side who's not predisposed to that will let it go.
Yes.
And you know what? That's a great thing, because you're
Yes.
not wasting time.
And you're not,
75% of the grunt work has been done with that email,
Right.
because you've identified who you are, what you're after.
So you've said essentially, I'm only going to talk to people who respond to my email.
Pretty much,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah.
And get me and get
Okay.
what we're after.
All right, so John, let's go into that first appointment. Assuming the referrer's written back and said, hey, yeah, it'd be great to catch up. I remember your surprise, because I remember coaching you and saying, you know what, John, after you send this type of email, you'll be surprised. You won't have to pay for coffee anymore. People will write to you and say, how about we go for a coffee? Because that email was just so compelling. That story was so compelling. So let's talk about, you've made an appointment. Let's just say they said, come and meet in my office first and we'll go downstairs for a coffee. What sort of things are you thinking prior to your first meeting with this referrer?
So before I met you or after I met you?
Before. No.
Okay, so the first thing you're thinking when you're walking into these appointments or going downstairs is you're eyeing out the environment. That's the first thing.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking for cues, of interest to strike up a conversation. Gives you insight into who you're dealing with, trophies,
Baseball bats,
whatever it
memorabilia,
might be.
yeah.
Books are
Yes.
really important.
Yes.
So whatever you're saying, the way the place is organised, is it clean, is it not, all that sort of stuff, that really makes a difference into who you're going to be potentially working with. So that's the first thing.
Isn't it interesting how you'd call that process fact-finding? And just as how important it is to do fact-finding for a client to submit their loan to a particular lender, it's equally as important to do this sort of fact-finding in relation to referrers, because you're constantly making an assessment of whether your time is going to generate a result for you.
Absolutely, and that's where we were going wrong very early on in the piece, because we were aiming for a result without going through the fact find, so to speak, with having our antennas up and looking around and taking in what was going on. So that was the first thing.
So John, if we can, and let's shortly get into pursuing that appointment and extracting the first referral, but it does beg the question, when you're starting to see things that don't fit in, right? Did you develop an early bailout strategy so that you didn't invest too much time? Like, for instance, if you walked into an office that was messy, there were files all over the place, there was last night's chicken dinner still on the reception desk or something like that, how would you actually bail out of a situation where your internal dialogue's gone, John, this is the wrong place for you?
In the very worst situations, we just pull out right away,
Right.
in all honesty, because there was situations where we had the person turn up in thongs and a t-shirt,
Right.
smelling a beer.
Right.
So I don't know how that happened, but it did.
Yes.
It does happen from time to time. But
So you just, give them a card and say,
say,
look,
look, just dropping by. I wanted to say hello. This is my card, and hoping that we'd never speak to each other again.
Right.
A bit like that person in the bar with the brown bag,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So accidentally dropped into one of those.
Yes.
But for the most part, if it felt like there's a series of questions that we go through. I guess there's an agenda that's in the meeting when we have that meeting that we follow. And I think what's really important is I have, even in my time with you, but also with the clients that I've worked with, we've walked into situations where they've had the big mortgage broking sticker at the front.
Yes.
Okay. And I think probably the most important, if I can say this, is to keep an open mind, because just because there's a big sticker on the front that says mortgage broking, I can't tell you how many times I'm thinking, why do they invite us in for?
I
They
know.
don't have it on their website. what's going on? Are they office sharing?
Yes.
Have they just started this?
Yeah.
Do they want to employ us?
Yes.
I don't understand.
And it's another commonality that if you go and see a realtor and next door they have a mortgage broker or a mortgage professional in the office next door, how common is it that the realtor doesn't deal with the mortgage broker that's actually next door? And you say to them, do you deal much with the people next door? And they go, no, well, we don't give them any business. I know Joe and Peter really well.
Yeah.
You know, we have a smoke and a coffee out the back.
Yeah.
But no, we never do business together.
It's the strangest thing, and this is us across 3 suburbs coming across, striking up a relationship. So you've got to, I think, whilst yes, there are some cues that you look on, you might look and say, God, this is the chicken dinners on the bench there. I don't know if I want to do business with that. But there is also, you've got to keep an open mind by the same token, because you can't. I guess discriminate because there's a sign or you see something. You've got to see it through sometimes, because some of those deals have come off. Some of those meetings have really come off.
Yes.
I remember one out west. We did here in Sydney where we did one, and it had the big mortgage broking sticker all over the front with sharing it with the accountant. And I remember the client was said, "Oh my God, we need to leave."
Yeah.
No. I said, no. Let's stay. Let's just stay. Let's just see this through. Let's just keep an open mind. Well, it turns out, long story short, that the guy was renting a space.
Right.
He was only involved in equipment finance, not anything else. He just had the mortgage thing up just in case, but never wrote one.
Right.
Never wrote one.
Isn't that amazing?
And so it was a great fit. This one ended up being a really, really good fit because the guy was the same, he was of the same era, I guess same background as my client. We struck a great rapport.
Your client being a broker.
Yeah, client being a broker. They had, they got on like a house on fire. There was, that relationship was building, really quickly. It was really good. And yet we were, I guess, moments away from walking away from it because she felt quite, stressed and pressured by the fact that we're going to walk in and be told, oh yeah, we've got a mortgage broker, but what else can you do for us?
That concept of perception and how you interpret it's really, really important. I'm with John Coffiotis. John today works with mortgage brokers and specialises and works with mortgage professionals and specialises in the area of engaging referrers and extracting referrers from them. John, without going into chapter and verse about what happens in the appointment and the follow-up, in our last few moments, can we just give a real high-level overview, a helicopter view of the appointment and the follow-up process by you just giving me short answers to some of the questions that I want to give you. John, how long is the appointment going to go for?
It shouldn't run for more than 15 or 20 minutes.
Okay. What is your key goal in that appointment?
To determine whether we've got a match in terms of personality and business types, and to work towards a referral.
In the event that you do have those sorts of things, how do you leave the meeting?
Leave the meeting with the expectation that we'll work together to getting a referral to each other.
So you establish that. So in other words,
up front.
You're saying to the referrer, okay, I'll refer to you if I can.
Yes.
You'll refer to me because you've said you're going to.
Yes.
And you're going to do it in this time frame.
Yeah, time bounding is really important. So we need to time bound that and give it a start and an end period so that we can come back and work out what's worked, what hasn't. Sometimes life just gets in the way, but we want to get to a result where we're working towards something.
And presumably in that appointment, you've told him, I can deal with these type of clients, but I can't deal with these type of clients. You made it very clear?
Yes, very, very clear that we won't deal with those type of clients. We can't deal with those types of clients. We might even say things like, our office doesn't know how to deal with that. Don't bother sending that.
Right.
Which is half true anyhow.
Yes.
So they're quite clear on what they need to give us.
Yes.
And the time frame they need to give it to. And we of course, we're clear on what we need to give them.
Right. So you've established that you're going to refer where you can. You've put a time frame around it.
Yep.
Tell me what follow-up. Okay, and this is the first 10 or 15 minutes. It ends. Do you set up another appointment time as well?
Absolutely. At the end of the appointment, if we've agreed that there's some commonality, then we're going to exchange. We try to exchange a referral with it, just kind of test the waters and see how we go, because you want to try with one. It's always good to do that. You've got a time bound period. You normally have an appointment 1 or 2 weeks later, depending on availability, to catch up and for 15 minutes and discuss. Got one that really worked really well. Let's do another one, or didn't get one, but these are the reasons why. I'm not clear. What can I do? But obviously, unearthing any blockages or any issues to help you get to that spot.
Yes. Okay. And of course, then from that point on, you develop and nurture the relationship. John, The digital age is certainly upon us, and I know that you have embraced the concept of marketing a broker's business via Facebook and LinkedIn and Google, and you're very active in encouraging your clients to do that.
Yep.
Is it possible, do you believe, to engage referrers through the digital strategy?
Absolutely. Without because more and more we find, through the digital strategy for attracting clients, the same principles apply. They're people as well. They're online. Social media is a big piece as well, where a lot of accountants are interacting anyway with their clients these days. So it makes sense to interact with or engage with referrals in that way, or start the process that way anyhow. And so it makes a lot of sense.
So we can give the people a bit of an insight. That was a bit of a leading question, because John and I are in the process right at the moment of co-authoring a referral engagement strategy and a course that's going to teach mortgage professionals how they can develop their own marketing strategy such that they're going to be able to attract the likes of realtors, attorneys and solicitors, CPAs or accountants, financial advisors, but they're all going to be able to create a prospecting machine that puts all those processes you described earlier on onto autopilot. And so the anticipation is that the broker or the mortgage professional will become the one being chased rather than the one chasing. How do you see the appointment between the first appointment that presumably if a mortgage professional is engaged, potential referrer, he's put an ad somewhere and explained the benefits of it. He's probably given a download, some sort of guide or perhaps a webinar about why they should work together. Do you think that the broker still will need to go hop in their car and drive off and meet the mortgage professional, or do you think the whole engagement process can be done online?
I think the whole engagement process can be done online. I think for sure, because the ability to connect with somebody at that level anyhow sets the framework, the groundwork for more of that work to be done that way anyhow. I mean, but you may decide to go catch up, but it's not a requirement.
Yes.
It can certainly be nurtured online.
Yes. So you're talking about instead of a 15-minute face-to-face appointment, a 15-minute Skype appointment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where you're talking about the exact same thing.
Absolutely.
With a like-minded person who, isn't necessarily a technophobe and sees the future of delivering their own services to their clients being augmented by harnessing the benefits of technology.
Absolutely, and having those like-minded people on board, gives you the opportunity to deal with clients that are open to that type of interaction as well. It goes to, because they birds of a feather, right?
Flock together. That's right. John, it's been an absolute pleasure capturing a bit of an insight into your ascendancy through the ranks of being a mortgage professional, and now you making a career out of coaching mortgage professionals and teaching them how to engage referrers and extract referrers. I might give you an opportunity to create a free plug. John, where can people find you on Facebook?
So you can find me on my Facebook page is called Compoundable.
Yes.
So as in compound and able.
Okay.
So Compoundable, and you can write to me there. Or message me through that means.
And do you provide consulting services to people all around the world about how to go and engage referrers?
Absolutely, yeah. So we support brokers all around the world in helping them establish relationships with third-party professionals, so that they're geared towards referring business and building up referral networks.
And so I'm presuming you have some sort of a package or a structure that would kick off with a potential mortgage professional first, that they would talk for 10 or 15 minutes with you to decide if you're a good fit, and if so, you would take them through the process of prospecting and engaging online for brokers and how to develop those relationships, how to extract the first referrals.
Yeah, so there's the package basically allows you to walk through the process of creating a message that's that you can elevate and send out to the marketplace for people to come on board and say, wow, yes, I want to deal with you, basically, and then take it from there, start establishing relationships that way and continue to deal with them via the digital process.
Okay. Well, John, it's been a great pleasure to speak with you, to lament back on those days where you hit your breakthrough moment. I think people will have had a great deal of empathy with you as you talked about the challenges that you confronted in the early days of your building your business, and also a great deal of enthusiasm, I'm sure, came through about that there is an actual way to make this this process work for them. So John Coffey-Otis, thank you very much for being the inaugural person on the Mortgage Sales Mastery Ultimate Professional podcast series. I thank you very much for your time. If you want to engage John's services, you can go to Facebook and type in the search bar the word compoundable, and you'll find that you'll be able to reach John there, or you can go to his website. John, do you have a website address?
Yep, it's www.compoundable.com.au.
www.compoundable.au. John Coffey-Otis, thanks for joining us. It's been a pleasure having you here.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks very much.